Welcome to Health, Harmony, and Happiness with Kathy. I'm your host, Kathy Stricker. In my personal life, I am a wife to a dedicated law enforcement officer and mama to 3 lively littles. I'm an Adamantine Yoga teacher, health coach, community betterment advocate, and wellness enthusiast. But what I really like doing is connecting others with tools and resources that bring about health, harmony, and happiness. Whatever this looks like to you, I'm here to offer my own insights and tools from others that allow you to realize your full potential to live mindfully as your authentic, best self. Allow me to be a guide in discovering what works for you. Hey friends, so today is the first episode in a series called Balancing Work and Family. My guest today is actually a crossover guest between Adamantine Yoga and Balancing Work and Family because he's one of my longtime students who has greatly developed a practice over the past 3 years. And he also has played a very active role in the upbringing of his children, as well as managing his relationship with his wife and owning a business here in Knoxville, Iowa. So enjoy today's conversation as we talk about adamantine first, and then we also go into some tips that he has for how to balance work and family, including starting a business and having a newborn all at once, and how to make it work, how to make sure that your relationships and your communication doesn't suffer with those closest to you. Hi, Kevin. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good. It was a warm weekend. It's nice to have the cool weather today.
It is, isn't it? It's like a huge refreshing change. And you were saying that you played golf all weekend?
Yeah.
So that was like way better. Well, yesterday at least.
It was very hot Saturday, but yes, yesterday morning was much better.
Cool. Good. Okay, well, Kevin is a longtime Adamantine Yoga practitioner, and so we're going to talk a little bit first about that because this is a crossover episode between Adamantine Yoga and Balancing Work and Family. So, Kevin, how long have you been practicing Adamantine Yoga?
Just shy of 3 years. I believe it was October of 2016 when I first took the introductory class.
Aha, I think so too.
So we're coming up on an anniversary.
Yeah, awesome. Well, what made you decide to try this practice out?
I had seen the flyer and had just kind of disregarded it, I'm sorry to say. But then I was being fitted for some new golf clubs. And part of the fitting process was a video of my swing. And I had no idea how short my backswing had gotten. It was to the point where I felt like I looked like a 60-year-old man swinging, and I'm not quite there yet. And I knew something needed to be done with my flexibility. And when I got home, I found the flyer and decided it's at least worth checking out.
That's cool. Well, I'm glad you did. And you started with an immersion that was geared mainly towards men. So it was a good way to be introduced to the practice. And now I love the fact that we have so many men that come into the studio daily and are practicing. So it's a good balance, I guess.
It is. And it's not quite as intimidating as that first time I walked into a GSP with about 8 women there, and they were all just in their practices, and here's me hoping I don't fall over. So.
Yeah, we've kind of balanced things out a little bit more, so that's good. You came to the practice because of golf, pretty much, and wanting to get more mobility because that's what really struck you as, oh man, if I don't do something, I'm losing this mobility, and I'm not getting any younger, right?
Right. I was a multi-sport athlete in high school. Mobility was never an issue for me, even though I didn't stretch like I knew I should have. And the 20 plus years of sitting behind a desk really take their toll. Maybe not incrementally, it's not noticed, but after 20 years trying to look back and remember when, not even close.
So what were you doing before you came to yoga, and what does your current health plan look like, I guess, as far as physical activity?
Plan?
Right? You have a plan. You
I
have a
really didn't.
routine.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that
I
part.
said you have a plan. You have a routine that you move through.
Well, yeah. For a long time, I was probably like a lot of people. I jumped from fad to fad to fad. I tried getting into running, and I hated running when I did it in school. So why I thought that would be workable for me, I don't know, but it didn't work. P90X was something that Jennifer and I both did with some friends for a while. But I don't know if it was the repetitive motion or me pushing myself beyond what I should have been doing, but I developed some tendonitis issues in some joints and walked away from it. Um, did work with CrossFit for the better part of 2 years off and on. I loved it, but my body did not love me for it. And my competitive nature was fighting my logic of just lightening my loads or taking it a little more easy. And I finally had to walk away from that because I was finding myself being sore every day. And it's just not a good plan to be popping 3 ibuprofen to start every day,
No, absolutely
just to get
not.
through. Yeah. And so now we've come across this. In addition to that, my wife Jennifer has been a longtime RAGBRAI participant, but a little over 2 years ago, we bought a Peloton cycle, stationary bike, that we've joined the cult. That's I've had a friend that has one that warned me that that's what it would be like, and she's correct. Made a lot of friends, really enjoy the workouts, and so I alternate my days now between Adamantine Yoga and working on the cycle.
Cool. And that's a very manageable thing for you to do and feel like you're still getting enough cardiovascular wise and just in another form of movement that's helpful, I think. And sometimes when people come into this practice, I think it can be a little bit intimidating. And the idea that adamantine was designed to be practiced 6 days a week as a meditation practice as well as a movement practice. But you have to do what works best for you. And that's what you're doing by incorporating the cycling in as well. So I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, and really, truly, it's a matter of scheduling. It's a matter of
Mm-hmm.
time available. I appreciate that adamantine is designed to be done first thing in the morning because that's the time of day I have the most control over. Once my workday starts, and then with children in school and activities, it's pretty tough to be consistent after hours. So that's where why I alternate is I at least can feel like I get a cardio workout a few days a week first thing in the morning, which isn't as easy as yoga. It's tough to wake up the body and really push it on that cycle, but I find a way to do it sometimes.
How do you feel different after your yoga practice versus after you cycle?
Um, the yoga practice, I feel awake. Um, as everybody that goes knows, I kind of leave my mark on my area and have to clean it up before I leave. And so there's the remnants of the wet towel. But I feel like I have gotten some cardio because for people who don't regularly practice, yoga is a workout if you're not a long time advanced practitioner because holding postures for a better part of 10 seconds can be work a lot of the time. But I don't feel out of breath. I don't feel exhausted when I walk out the door from practicing yoga. I feel like I'm ready to start my day. Where there are sometimes on that cycling workout, I really feel like I've had my butt kicked and just making my way back upstairs is a chore.
Aha, very different.
But they do work well together because I find out the cardio workout pairs well with the whether you want to call it low impact or recovery type workout that yoga provides.
Yeah. So how has it changed your life over the years to incorporate a yoga practice into your daily or regular routine?
I get out of my chair a little easier now. I didn't realize that was an issue until things improved. I find I control my breathing much better. Very, very recent point, our family went on vacation to Kauai, and we went on a hike that Jennifer and I had taken with a couple friends 9 years ago. 9 years ago, we were in the middle of our P90X fitness, so I was a lot more fit and 9 years younger. And it was a grueling 7 hour hike, but I wanted to try again. And I found that just the breathing techniques alone got me through a lot of the steeper parts of the climb or some of the more treacherous parts of the hike.
That is so cool.
Yeah,
That's so
yeah,
cool. And you did the whole hike again?
we did.
That's
We did.
awesome.
Our kids probably could have done it about an hour faster than us, but they were generous and waited for us at the top. And then on the way back down,
That's
two of
good.
them two of them took off because they were just tired of waiting for the slow people. But we made it.
Well, good. I'm glad. And maybe you got to enjoy the scenery a little bit more than they did then.
Well, I don't know. They probably enjoyed it just fine because they weren't hurting as much as we were by
Oh,
the end of it.
well, maybe. Maybe. Oh my goodness. Is there anything else you want to share about the practice? Maybe insights for someone who hasn't ever practiced and who is considering it?
Okay. Yeah, first of all, it's not voodoo. That is something that I don't know if it's because of how yoga was introduced to Western culture 20 or 30 years ago, where generally speaking, it was someone from India or that region, and people just thought it was weird. And maybe it is weird, but to me, it's not. It's something where it forces me to be introspective. And Jennifer actually told me within 6 months of practicing regularly, she noticed a difference just in my demeanor. I do tend to, when I'm practicing regularly, I do tend to hold my emotions better. I tend to be calmer in situations. I tend to be more even keeled with decision making. And that is pretty valuable, especially in the type of business that I have where I'm dealing with the public, not always giving them good news, and it's easier to navigate those situations. Um, the other thing is, it's amazing how yoga can transfer just to everyday life, whether it be going for a walk and all of a sudden I find myself metering my breathing as I walk just because I want to or because I'm
Right.
aware of it. Where before it would just be I'd walk and then realize I was out of breath for some silly reason. On the golf course, I find using the breathing techniques work very well if I'm in a situation where maybe I'm competing and I have an important shot, or I'm frustrated and I need to calm myself down. But either way, it definitely transcends several levels.
Cool. Yeah, those are all good. The breath is such a key factor. And like you said, you pointed it out in many instances that you use it in daily life. And if we're not aware of that breath, then we really don't have much control over what's going on in our mind either, because it's just, responsive instead
Right.
of taking the time to be mindful of what you are trying to decide or trying to accomplish. So,
And for me, it also creates tension if I'm not aware of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of people tend to hold their breath. I'm guilty of this and I don't even realize it. And my husband thinks I'm crazy because he's like, how can you just be holding your breath? And I don't know, but I just apparently do. And then I'll catch myself and be like, oh, I wasn't really breathing.
Yeah.
So to have that awareness, that's one of the first meditative things that come into play when somebody starts meditation, is just to be introduced to that awareness of your breath and how you're breathing, even if it's just focusing on the inhale and the exhale.
Yeah.
So it plays a huge role. And we go so much farther into that with Adamantine, with counting the breath and with breathing rhythmically and all of
Right.
that it definitely is a useful tool in life.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about, or you mentioned your wife, you mentioned your kids, you mentioned your job. Tell us
Hmm.
more about your background. And if you want to share what you do, you can. If not, that's fine too. But tell us about the dynamics of your family life.
I'll go back then to about 22 years ago. In fact, right about this time, I just had an evaluation with my first career position, and I was passed over for a promotion. And I was very upset because I felt that I was not being given a fair shake. You know how everybody does when, or not everybody, but a lot of people do when they feel like they've been ignored or overlooked. And opportunity presented itself through a friend about a gentleman here in Knoxville that was wanting to sell his business and retire. And I didn't think much of it. fast forward to October, we were down here for a family birthday. I decided to write the guy a letter. And long story short, by the end of December, I had a new job. And in the meantime, Jennifer was trying to get into PA school. She had just found out for the second time that she didn't get in, and she's wondering how moving from the Des Moines area to Knoxville is going to help her getting into PA school. Well, we took the leap, and we moved to Knoxville at the end of December of '96. I took a pay cut, no benefits, but just an opportunity. And after the tax season of '97, the owner looked at me and sat me down and said, "You treat my clients like I want to be treated, or I want them treated. So if you're ready to buy, I'm ready to sell." And not long after we finished that agreement, Jennifer found out she got into PA school. And we had already decided, because of our ages, which we weren't old, but we knew PA school was going to postpone things. We were also pregnant with our first child. So January 1st or January 2nd of 1998, I became a business owner. January 27th of '98, I became a father. And in June of '98, Jennifer started PA school, where basically we would see her maybe on the weekends. But it was such an intensive program that she would leave in the morning before we got up, and she would get home after we went to bed. So it was an interesting couple of years, and I will say I was very naive. And had I known then what I know now, I probably wouldn't have taken the leap. Becoming a business owner and a parent in the same month was very stressful.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But it's probably also that naive stubbornness that a lot of 20-somethings have, that I just believed I could do it. I had accomplished everything else I'd set out to accomplish, so why not? And after having only 2.5 years of experience in my profession, that was kind of a foolish move looking back on it. But I've made it work. I definitely graduated from the School of Hard Knocks with a master's degree. We now have 3 children. Our oldest, Alex, will graduate from Simpson College this December. Our middle one, Sam, is headed to UNI next month. And then Abby, our youngest, will be a sophomore at Knoxville, and looking forward to volleyball season.
Very cool.
And then Jennifer and I love to travel every chance we get. So our motto is kind of along the lines of, we work so that we can travel.
Yeah. So how did you do that when Jennifer was in PA school?
Yeah.
And you had a newborn and you're a new business owner, which, goodness, there's just so much that goes into that. What kind of support system did you have?
My parents and Jennifer's parents were both wonderful. Jennifer's mom and Alex have a special bond. She was very great about, since she worked in town, heading to the sitter and picking Alex up, especially during tax season. It would be something where when I could leave, he'd be there waiting, but otherwise it was just he and Grandpa and Grandma spent a lot of time together.
Yeah, I bet. Well, that's really beneficial. I think that's one of the things that when you have family in the area, take advantage of it, because that's huge. We don't have family in the area, so we rely on other people and a lot of other tools, but we have weird schedules too. So, but that's wonderful that you had family then in town that could help.
Yeah.
He also went to daycare, though, you said, or like a babysitter's. Yeah.
Right.
You have to enlist the help of those services and people around you to get that done. So what was it like owning your business and growing a young family? And your wife's still in PA school. Right.
Well, the PA school thing was 1 year, very intensive. The second year she was working in hospitals and clinics, so that was a little more, it was closer to an 8 to 5 situation. But really, we were just doing the best we could each day. We had an idea, we had some dreams possibly, but it was really just a matter of, let's get through the next milestone, which is graduating from PA school, and then find a job, because then we can actually start paying on the loans that were taken out.
Yeah.
In the meantime, try to be good people. It really wasn't any more complicated than that, because we didn't have the money to do anything beyond that. And I think I learned early on with this business, I deal with enough different personalities that if I don't learn how to perceive them and how to react to them, I wasn't going to last very long in this business. And so that's probably where I saw my greatest growth was learning how to read body language or recognize body language and reactions. But truly, when it came to home life, it was just a matter of let's do the best we can with what we have and keep the eye on the future.
Family communication then, like it was critical that you had to communicate well and you had to get the scheduling down. You were a very involved parent and you had to be, right?
I had to be,
and that's
right.
part of why I asked you to be on this podcast, because you are a dad who was very involved and who was not only showing that support to your spouse, to your wife, but also you knew this is my family. I'm also responsible for it. And I think we don't give dads a lot of credit sometimes for the role that they play. But you do a lot around your house, and I know you do because you've shared stuff that you do and that Jennifer enjoys doing. And it reminds me a lot of my husband and me because she likes to fix stuff. She likes to kind of be that handy person. That's kind of who I am at times. And Matt does the cooking sometimes. He's not afraid to do the laundry. He does a lot of that kind of stuff. Speak to that a little bit more and how you figured out those roles, because sometimes that can be a challenge mentally to go against the grain of the norms of husband and wife roles.
Sure. I would say for the most part, we're just fortunate in the fact that we like to do different things. I love to cook. It's my therapy. It's probably, I tell people it's the only time I actually show any creativity in my life is when I cook. And I really enjoy cooking. Jennifer, it's a task. It's a chore. She'll do it and she's a good cook, but she doesn't enjoy it and it shows. And that's about the extent of what I do at the house. Jennifer handles everything else, and I'm not going to make up stories about how I do this and how I do that. She is one of those personalities that always wants to be busy, and she always wants things done a certain way. And we learned early on in our relationship that if I'm not going to do it the way she wants it, then it either gets to be done my way or she's going to do it. And she's okay with that. And it's something where, yes, there are some snide jokes that get told back and forth, but in reality, Jennifer is just someone who likes to stay busy, likes to have things going on, and I almost make myself slow down and be sedentary just to balance that. Sometimes I think she believes I do it to spite her, but we kind of have this battle back and forth of I need to be more active, she needs to slow down, and so basically we just pull.
Nice. So talk about that now with raising kids in the past 5-10 years as they were in high school, middle school. How did you balance those roles, and how did you attend all the sports and music and everything else that your kids are involved in and still have time for Jennifer and you, and still have time for your social life, for doing things outside of the kids' school activities with them?
Time for Jennifer and me and the social life were the two areas that suffered. I won't go into detail, but my upbringing was with a divorced family, and so I didn't always see one of my parents. I didn't see one of my parents frequently at all. And so it was something where I've almost made it a focus where, yes, I work long hours. Yes, I have things to do. But when it comes to my kids' activities, unless I can't be there, I'll be there. There have been some track meets. There have been some soccer games just because of tax season that I have had to miss a few. This past season, I didn't. This past season with our younger son playing his final year of high school soccer, and then Abby had some opportunities on the girls' soccer team, I just decided that this was the year I wasn't going to miss anything. And what that means is longer hours at the office during tax season or coming back after games and working late. And Jennifer and I know we have kind of our own seasons during the year. The end of January through mid-April, we just kind of muddle through. And our kids have grown up knowing that Dad's just not around much during those months. So I try to make up for it the other months. And of course, now that they're teenagers, it's not as big a deal that Dad's around. They
Right.
do appreciate knowing that I'm around and knowing that Jennifer's around. But yes, we've noticed, just like we did 30 plus years ago, it's not exactly their cup of tea to hang out with Mom and Dad every night, and I'm okay with that.
Right. So Jennifer has a pretty regular schedule right now. And when it's not tax season, you have a fairly regular schedule, right?
Yeah. But yeah, the tough part with Jennifer is, she has an hour of the day that her schedule says she's done seeing patients. That doesn't mean she's done with her day.
Right.
And so it's not uncommon for her to have her schedule end at 3:30 but not get home until 6. It's not uncommon for her to have to go in on a weekend just to catch up on a few things. So while our schedules are somewhat regular, they always have their quirks. And then I think it's just because of our personalities, we tend to fill every single weekend. So there's not a lot of downtime. And sometimes we need to get back into that Monday schedule just to slow down a bit.
Right. I get that. I totally get that. Or it's just nice to have okay, now there's some normalcy going on in our lives.
Right.
Do you have any big insights or tips on balancing work and family that you could pass on to someone through many of the stages of their lives? So even to me myself as a newer business owner with super young kids right now, how do you stay focused to know that this time, even though it's super hard because those little people are so dependent on you,
right,
that you get out of that?
So I'll see if I can figure out how to zoom in on this thing, but there's a picture over my shoulder, and that picture was actually drawn by a financial advisor. He writes a blog each week. I follow him. His name's Carl Richards. So he started this. He was having a conversation with a client over drinks, I think, and he just wasn't getting the concept. And so Carl grabbed a napkin and a pen and drew a quick little sketch and to get his point across. Well, when I saw this one, I bought it. And for people who aren't going to see the video, I can talk it out. It's a Venn diagram, so 2 intersecting circles. Circle on the left says things that matter. Circle on the right says things that you can control. And then the shaded area in between, he's got an arrow pointing at and said what you should focus on. And I probably apply that more than anything else in parenting, in my job, in things that happen in life that I disagree with. And I have to really just slow down and realize that if I can't really do anything about it, I have to find a way to push it somewhere else. And if it matters and I can do something about it, then that needs to move up on the priority list. And like in 2 months, Jennifer and I will have been married 24 years. And I had a friend that I met through Peloton ask me last fall how we do it, how with the percentage of marriages ending in divorce, how we made it work. And I think our biggest thing is we always put the family first. Sometimes that means I have to give in and be grumpy. Sometimes that means Jennifer has to give in and be grumpy. Sometimes that means the kids don't get their way and they're grumpy. But in the end, we've had to look at it as a couple. If we want to make it, we have to make compromises. And then same way as a family. So unfortunately, I'm that jerk dad. I'm not afraid to say no. And my kids know that.
That's what I wanted to hear. Like, what are those insider tips that you can't be the helicopter parent all the time and you have to be able to say, no, it's not going to work in our family.
Yeah. And I will say I'm guilty of flying the helicopter. So I am definitely not the genius that has it all figured out. I've fallen down way too many times. But if there's any success we've had, there are times where we absolutely say no and we mean it and we endure the storm that comes with it and then move on. But I will say every single one of our kids at some point has said thank you for that. Because as they've gotten older, they've seen the consequences of not saying yes to everything.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's good. That's kind of how I feel with our kids is like they know no, and we use 1, 2, 3 magic with them, and like it's good and it works and it stops them from doing things that we don't want them doing or that are stop behaviors.
Yeah.
But they don't get away with just anything, and that's why I feel like we can take them to restaurants and we can do things like that, go out in public, because 98% of the time they're pretty good. Church last week was a little bit of a disaster for me. I'm going to kind of blame that on the full moon also.
There you go. Well, we've received a lot of comments when we've traveled when our kids were younger. But as far as 1, 2, 3 magic, we have a certain child who has a very famous story in our family, because after Jennifer and I got to 2, he said 3 for us. And yes, that is brought up at least 3 or 4 times a year. So it doesn't always work.
It doesn't. And it definitely works better with Huck, with our first, than with Scout. Like but she knows, and we get to 3 and she'll just go to her room. But there are some things that it's like, oh man, she's not moving anywhere. And we're at 3. We could be beyond 3, but we've got to pull her into her room to get there.
Boy.
So I don't know. It has its moments. It has its times that it works.
Yeah.
Okay, so how has all of what you've done to balance work and family over the years and what you continue to do, how has that created health, harmony, and happiness in your life?
I suppose it has, and I've just not realized it, because I still battle a weight issue. I still view myself as an athlete, even though I'm now about 60 pounds more than what I weighed in high school. And so it's that mind versus reality thing. So probably a lot of my issues where I've compromised is I shove food in my pie hole. I know that the right thing to do is to do this for my family, or I know the right thing to do is do this for my business, which means putting off the satisfaction that I want. And so then the short-term fix is doing that. But I can say, after being a business owner for the better part of 21 years now, the patience is paying off. I do have the fortunate situation where I can do a lot of things that I couldn't do 20 years ago financially, because I have great staff. In fact, I joked, when I scheduled this time with my receptionist, she said, "What do you mean health, harmony, and happiness? What are you talking about?" And I said, "Well, I just told someone mine is simple. I have 2 women in my life that tell me what to do, one at the office and one at home. And as long as I do that, everything's great. And as soon as I deviate from it, then it falls apart." So, really and truly, I've found that I'm more of an ideas person than I ever thought I was when I was young. I do like to see the big picture, and I do have the ability to focus on the long-term goal. And I will thank teachers that I had when I was a child. I will thank every coach I had in junior high and high school that kept reminding me that it's about the process, because if you master the process, the results will come. And I've applied that to my professional life. So what I've also learned then is when there are things that I don't do well, rather than trying to make those a strength, I just delegate those to somebody else. And if that somebody else likes doing those things, then it's a win on all sides.
Totally. That's a great piece of advice. Whether it's in your family or your job too, if there's something that is not one of your strengths, it's okay to give yourself permission to set that aside or to give it to someone else to do. Definitely. I was just thinking of that concept this morning, so thanks for bringing that up, because
you're welcome.
That's huge. I feel like, yeah.
Well, and it's a struggle, because the information age is wonderful, because I can wake up at 4:00 in the morning because I can't sleep, and if I'm thinking about lizards in the desert, I can go read about it.
Right.
At the same time, we're also fed from a fire hose all of this data. And I think society has moved so far to the side of I can do it myself, all I need to do is look at YouTube, that we've forgotten that no, what we really need to do is what we like to do and what we enjoy doing. And if we can make money do it, even better. But if there are other people that are going to do this 5 times faster than I can do it, then why would I bother?
Right.
And that's how you help your local community. That's how you help the global community, for that matter. And I think the individuality is starting to isolate a lot of us, and that's not always a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah, good insight. What's a big insight or a big tip that you could share about balancing work and family?
Figure out priorities. There is a very common old 2x2 square that one side is urgent and the other side is important. And so if something is urgent but not important, be able to recognize that and be able to put it aside. Because I've encountered some personalities where something looks urgent, has to be done. It's not important to the mission of whatever's going on, but it's urgent, so I need to handle it. Well, in the meantime, then the mission fails because the important things didn't get handled. So if when I'm at my best, I am brutally honest with myself and I handle the things that are important first. And when I'm not at my best, then I allow those other things that might be a little bit easier or maybe put off the hard stuff or the stuff that I don't like doing, but I know I need to do. That's when I stumble. So I think brutal honesty with myself is probably the tip that I can pass on to somebody else. It's not about being hurtful or about being negative. It's just being aware of things as they truly are and not trying to put up a facade and make it look like something else.
Yeah, and that's a hard thing to do. You have to have a lot of self-awareness and a lot of confidence in yourself, too, to be able to do that and to trust. I think that's a huge thing also, is to trust the process, the universe, and the plan. So,
and understand we don't win every time.
Exactly. That's a good one. All right. Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for taking some time today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day in this beautiful weather that we're having.
Thank you. And thanks for making me get out of my comfort zone, because being interviewed is not something that's ever comfortable for me. And so hopefully somebody finds some value with a little bit of this time at least.
Well, you did great. I think they will. That's part of growth in life, right? Is being uncomfortable. And you spoke to that a lot in the fact that you had to be uncomfortable for a large chunk of your life when you were figuring out business, raising a baby, wife in school, all of that. And that's just how we grow and become better people. So thanks for sharing all of that.
You're welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Kevin, for stepping out of your comfort zone and helping me with this podcast. I really admire the way that he has gone about helping and contributing to raising his family, as well as being a very well-known business owner in our community. He's got a lot of integrity, and I think that definitely shows in both who his children have grown up to be, and what his business perspective is like as well. It's just great to hear from a man's point of view, because we don't always talk about balancing work and family from the male standpoint. And perhaps I need to get my husband in here and interview him. I think he would probably say the same thing that Kevin has also said or alluded to at times, is that it can be challenging, but you just kind of have to do what you do to get by, and that's part of the whole battle, is accepting where you are and being able to move forward and continue to be present for your family. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Thanks for tuning in. If you like what you hear, help us grow this podcast by sharing it with even just one other person. And it would mean so much to me if you would take a moment of your time to write a review. Your comments and feedback are what help me continue to bring you topics and guests that can help you and others on their journey in creating health, harmony, and happiness. Remember to head on over to CairnYogaWellness.com to get the show notes and links from today's episode. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Cairn Yoga Wellness, and to continue connecting with more resources that could help you enhance health, harmony, and happiness in your own life, subscribe to this podcast. Thanks again for listening.